Welcome back to the Common Liberty Podcast. I'm Jeffrey.
I'm Eric.
And today is May 7th, 2026. We have a very special guest today.
Hi, I'm Kat DiVittorio. It's nice to be here.
Thanks, Kat. It's good to have you today.
It's good to have you.
Thank you.
Kat is a local educator, an advocate, a mother, and we're very interested in hearing what you have to say about changes in Erie. Most importantly, you're a candidate for the Pennsylvania legislature in District 4.
Yes, I'm running for the State House District 4 state representative position. I'm really excited about the campaign.
Could you describe that district a little bit for us, what it looks like?
Absolutely can. It's a little bit of a doozy. We're kind of a U around the city of Erie. We're Girard, Edinboro, Mill Village, Wattsburg, Union City, Corey, obviously that's where I'm from originally. Northeast, we've got the whole Union City U area. It's a pretty big one. There's a lot.
Yeah, it's a big district.
Yeah.
I remember looking at it and I'm like, wow, this just covers like everything right around Erie.
Oh yeah, it hits Waterford too. Like it literally is like a weird U-S shape, like a tributary river.
How long has the district been shaped like that?
They've just recently done the rebranding. Actually, when Chelsea Oliver ran, I think that was the first year that they did that. So I think that was 4 years ago.
Okay, so 4 years ago, it was a newly aligned district.
Redistrict, yeah.
Goodness.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself, Kat, and what your background is and what you see in the future in this area.
Absolutely. I'm going to try to not just throw a resume at you. I've gotten in trouble for that sometimes, but I am currently the Assistant Director of the Corey Higher Education Council and the Executive Director of the DiVittorio Center for Autism. I am a mother to two of my own children, a 15-year-old daughter and a 7-year-old son, Emily and Nicholas. Both of them are on the autism spectrum, and then I have a 13-year-old stepson named Jimmy. My son is level 3 profoundly autistic, and they consider him nonverbal, but get him talking about dinosaurs or the planets, he'll talk your ear off. And then my daughter is considered level 1, and she has dyspraxia and hypermobility. So I live in Corey, like I said. I grew up there. I came back about 8 years ago, and I'm very, very civically and community-based. I volunteer a lot. I do a lot with our local communities. I'm on the Autism Society board of directors. I'm the vice president there. Honestly, I just really like doing things, so I'm busy a lot.
Wonderful. Yeah. So in terms of education and the Corey High Ed Council, what role, if any, does the High Ed Council have with bringing people on the autism spectrum disorder into a more mainstream setting in education, especially since the pandemic changed how education is delivered?
So the Corey High Ed, it's actually something that's a community education center. It's more community-based. The biggest thing that we do there is we remove barriers to education. So what we do primarily as far as autism education goes is we have classes for adults, for caregivers, for workplace. We did a Workplace 101. We've done Autism 101 and Autism 102 and a neurodivergence in the workplace. So we actually educate the adults on, first of all, what the resources are, what kind of things that you can do to connect, and then employers on how you do interviews, like how you're going to talk to people when they're in there and understand that maybe they don't understand that you're supposed to wear a nice outfit because they dress for the job. They'll show up for a construction job wearing dirty clothes because they think, okay, well, I'm going to go into construction, but you need to kind of bridge that gap. So we do that more at the high ed than we do the actual education for the people on the autism spectrum. The DiVittorio Center is actually what we're working on. We're working on being a rural education and autism support hub. We're actually in the process of accreditation through the state. We've done most of the process. We are in the last steps. We need a building, but our curriculum is accredited, our staff is accredited, our therapeutic support services are all accredited. Our building just isn't ADA compliant, so we're fundraising for that, and we're meeting with the state about hopefully moving forward with that too.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I remember you also, little off topic, but I remember hearing once you were a big wrestling fan.
I am a huge wrestling fan. I grew up watching it with my dad, and then we got back into it a couple of years ago. My husband and I watch a lot of wrestling. Huge Cody Rhodes fan. I'm like really, really big into Good Guy Cody Rhodes, which is probably the most boring plot lines, but I'm here for it. And I was actually really sad to see that there's a possibility of CM Punk versus Cody Rhodes, because those are my two favorites from two opposing. So that scares me a little bit.
There's definitely, they could do that with the crown jewel.
They could. And I'd be so sad.
I think I'm excited. I love El Grande Americano, and I love the whole crazy storyline between original and what is it? The original El Grande Americano and
It's the imposter El Grande Americano. The OG is the best, absolutely.
I think it's one of the funniest stories, and I'm so excited for the end of. I think they're doing that on AAA.
Are they?
At the end of May.
Yeah, I saw that they have theirs. Yes.
And
yes.
they finally started having like Rey Mysterio translate it, so you can actually. I would watch it, and I'm like, I only understand like bits and pieces of this.
Every time Rey Mysterio comes on, I get the Booyaka Booyaka 619 song stuck in my head, and I sing it to the entire household, and they don't know what's going on with me. So
oh
yeah.
my gosh!
I grew up a fan of Rowdy Roddy Piper.
Okay.
And Jimmy Superfly Snuka.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ultimate Warrior was my jam when I was a kid, and then Jake
yeah.
the Snake, because I mean he had a snake. Come on, like absolutely.
I didn't even get into it until WrestleMania 40.
Really?
Yeah,
oh
I've been into
no.
it for a couple of years. My friend had me sit down, and he was watching it. And we were sitting on Discord together. He's like, "You want to watch this with me?" And he started streaming it, and we watched it together.
Oh.
It was a great time. And then my buddy just got into it, and he's obsessed with Danhausen.
Danhausen is the best.
Danhausen is one of the funniest things, and like, you get him because he's just a goober.
He is. It's so funny. I wish I could go around cursing people that got in my way all day. Like that would make things way easier, I think.
And then he just can go around and asks people for money, and it's totally in character, and no one cares.
Absolutely.
$400 human to come tag team with.
Do you have $20 He never said he's going to uncurse somebody. He just asked for $20
He just asked for $20 human.
Yeah.
Very nice, very evil.
Eric and I watched WrestleMania a couple weeks ago, and I was happily reminded of all the chairs that are hidden under the stage.
It's a lot of
and
chairs.
And the table with the branding
Slim Jim
logo,
table.
the Slim Jim table.
They started doing that about a year and a half ago, and it drives me up the wall.
And there's a little tiny wrestler hiding underneath the stage also.
Well, and it's funny because this WrestleMania was the first time you see all these like little squares around the edge of the ring, and they're actually the names of people who sponsored it. Green Shirt Guy had a square that said Green Shirt Guy on the WrestleMania stage. Now, like in the capitalist sort of like people can pay their money to put that on there. It's like, oh, okay. But like, I want my name on the WrestleMania stage. That would be awesome. I'm never going to make that much money, but I want that. That's really cool.
I got to go to a house show, their Christmas house show in Pittsburgh.
Okay, how was that?
It was awesome.
Was
I was in the third row.
Okay.
So like I'll have some pictures I'll show you of like that I got of The Miz, and he came out, of course, you know, trying to get everyone riled up in his Browns gear because he's from Cleveland. And then I'm just like laughing my ass off.
Oh, absolutely.
His whole storyline with Danhausen and like him going to his house.
That is cool. Yeah.
And just taking his daughter's bike. And they're like, "What did your daughter think of that?" They're like, "She thinks he's awesome."
Absolutely.
Well, Tiffy's match had a surprise ending, kind of.
Tiffy is my
Tiffy
favorite,
yeah.
so I'm always just happy with Tiffy Stratton. So yeah, absolutely.
I think she's so good, and it has to do with like her career as a gymnast going into it. Like, she is so good at all the aerials.
Well, and I always think back to the fact that when I first saw Tiffy Stratton, I was like, oh my gosh, she's just going to be like this really annoying character, like just like Liv Morgan or whatever. And then she was like the equivalent of good guy Cody Rhodes, because Tiffany Stratton is always just like a good person. So I'm always just like here for it. Yeah.
And I know her, and then there's a bunch of really good women wrestlers at the moment.
Absolutely.
Like her, Rhea. Lyra's really good. I'm a big fan of Jade. I like Jade Cargill.
I'm stuck on Charlexa. Like Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss are like my favorites. They make me so happy.
I really think I thought that was a weird pairing at first, but now I'm like really here for it.
Me too.
I'm like, the opposites worked.
It does work, and I guess I'm just stuck on like, it's a best friend story. It's beautiful.
It's beautiful. And then you got Obafemi. He just comes out and breaks people.
Oh my goodness. And like, it reminds me of the Bushwhackers, like, because they used to come out and do the arm swing thing. So like, I mean, it's not as intense as that, and it's a little bit more scary, but they do that. He reminds me of the Bushwhackers when he comes out, and we used to do the Bushwhacker walk when I was a kid, so I'm here for that too.
I've heard Gina Carano may have a comeback.
That would be pretty insane, honestly. Mm-hmm. So yeah. But I did cry when Brock Lesnar left, because he cried, and that was a lot to me, because anybody showing that much emotion, you know, that like, even Paul Heyman was just ugly crying, and I was like, no, I can't do this, guys. Like, no.
Paul Heyman makes me laugh so much. He's so perfectly evil for that show.
Mustache twirling evil. Absolutely.
And, like, I love a good bad guy. If you can convince me you're a good bad guy, like, when I can suspend that disbelief, like, I'm obsessed with it. And like, he's just a great bad guy. Like,
well, and it's funny because he's such a good person in real life.
Yeah.
He loves wrestling so much, and this is like his whole thing. And like, he's been there forever, right? Like, Attitude Era, like the whole time.
He was doing ECW when I was practically in diapers, probably in diapers, but like, he has been there forever.
He has.
And he, just so Geoff knows, he is kind of like, he's a manager, and so when someone isn't the greatest on the mic, they'll put him with someone, but they put him with bad guys, and he comes out and he's very like, oh, look how great he is, and he sucks up, and like, it's a real, he's so good at it. Like, I can't describe it as anyone else, and everyone loves him there because they go, hi, my name, and everyone says Paul Heyman.
Mm-hmm. What did you think about the Joe Hendry concert about firing Logan Paul? Because when I tell you I was here, like, I was my favorite thing.
I'm just kind of hoping they do it, but
yes.
Andre the Giant was another famous pro wrestler who had this reputation in the ring of being a real bruiser and a tough guy. But they found out on the set of The Princess Bride that he was the most gentle, good person you could imagine, and that he was always taking care of other people first.
One of my favorite stories from my mother is she was in New Jersey, and when she was in high school, she and a friend got to go interview him for the local newspaper. And she tells the story about how like her hand was tiny compared to his hand when she shook his hand, and he was just so polite and so nice, and they got to interview him when they were in high school, and she said it was really, really cool. So I've grown up with that story my whole life. And there's also a story about how like the amount of beer it took to get him drunk was like inhuman, right? Because of his size and everything like that. So like, if you went, like, don't ever try to outdrink Andre the Giant because you're going to be on the floor. So, yeah.
Yeah, he was so good. Big. He was huge. And I just love The Princess Bride.
Oh, yeah.
It's so perfect. Such a good movie.
Absolutely.
So we're all anticipating something like WrestleMania this November.
Yes, it does feel like it's a little bit more WrestleMania than it has been in past years. I think that we're at a point where, with the fragile majority that we have in the Democratic House of only having one seat, things are much more competitive, where they've kind of just been like fill-in roles in the past. And I do think that we have the potential to see a lot more vocalization than maybe prior. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, I can frog splash, though, if I have to, I guess. So, it'll be okay.
There's been a trend nationally of some candidates performing much, much better than expected against the incumbents.
Absolutely.
And that's a trend, of course, we hope to see repeat here in Pennsylvania.
I'm really hoping so as well. I think that if there was ever a year to do it, this was the year to do it. Mm-hmm. I think that we're seeing a lot of people that are very upset with the cynicism and very upset with the way that things have been going. And I think that we're seeing a very positive trend kind of reflecting that, which I think is great. A lot more people showing up as well.
As many people that are concerned about the cost of gas and just driving to and from work or driving to the grocery store, what are your thoughts about the minimum wage in Pennsylvania?
So I can speak to the fact that I have currently been driving more than I feel like I ever have before with the campaign and with the center and with everything that's going on in my life. I feel like I've been in Erie every single day this week. So we're filling up my gas tank three times a week. And I think that we're at a point where our minimum wage should reflect the rising inflation. I think that if you look at the way that financials work and economy works, you would be able to kind of make that jump to how a raise in minimum wage just naturally makes sense. I know that there are a lot of people that are afraid that that changes, obviously, the cost of living and everything of that nature. But if you look at the way that the economy works and you compare where our cost of minimum wage is now to where it should be realistically, it doesn't affect things like gas prices or the cost of food or the cost of groceries the way a lot of people see that. I do think that it's one of those situations where we're not really taught this in school, right? We're not taught the way that inflation is affected and the way that minimum wage raise actually affects the cost of things. And I think that if we did that, I think a lot more people would be more on board with it than we are right now.
That seems to be a good point, since something like 65 to 75% of the American economy is consumer spending.
Yes.
So it plays a lot of different roles. You mentioned the shape of the economy, and people have observed the K-shaped economy, where one segment of the economy is doing very well and trending up, and yet the majority of consumers and people participating in the economy are not doing as well.
No.
And not trending in the same direction.
No, and I think that we see K-shaped economy, especially in situations like this, where we have rising gas prices and we have a lot of investors who make money off of those investments. We see them making money, but people who already can't afford things, especially with rising in gas prices and rising in groceries, they're just getting further and further in debt. And we keep seeing this because people are saying, oh no, like I'm doing great financially, so you must be too. But they're in a totally different bracket and understanding. And I do think that so many things, if we just try to look at things outside of our own space and outside of our own perspective, I think that that's where we get stuck so much, is we can only see things in our own mind as we experience it. And if we were able to be like, oh, I can see that you're struggling and I can see that this isn't the same thing, I think that there would be more understanding there as well.
That's definitely a perspective that comes from the Center for Autism and one of the roles of community inclusion.
Absolutely.
And making sure that everybody has access to the economy, everybody has access to thrive, whether it's socially or economically.
Our tagline at the center is every child deserves a chance to thrive, because of the fact that there are so many financial barriers when it comes to autism support services. I know that I looked into private autism schools for my son when he was diagnosed, and we're looking at $60,000, $70,000 a year for just specific autism schools. Wow. I looked into autism support services because I was willing to pay for people to come in home and have ABA services or Sunrise services or speech and OT, even if I had to pay for it out of pocket. And we're looking at $100 an hour to start. I looked at all of these things, and when I saw that, okay, maybe I can do some of these things, but that doesn't mean that my neighbor next door, who's a single mother who can't afford to work because her son needs to have somebody with them 24/7, and there are no daycares that help children with disabilities in Corey, let alone a lot of other places. There's no way to make that equitable. Just because one person can afford a service for their child doesn't mean that the person next door shouldn't be able to afford that same service. Their child deserves just as much humanity as anybody else. So that was where we built the model out. That's where I built the model out for the DiVittorio Center for Autism to be cost-free for privatized education and autism support services. We have a model that makes that 100% cost and barrier-free for those people, because nobody should have less for their child because they don't have the same privileges as everybody else.
So you also work with teachers in the public school system.
I do.
what are your thoughts about the salaries of teachers in the public school system?
So I am actually on the Corey Area School District School Board, and I actually went on the school board a few years ago to see kind of what the support services were. I got to witness where our paraeducators are getting paid. I got to witness where our special education teachers are being paid. And I look at the salaries for teachers, and I look at how these people are our children's first line of education, and I look at the hours, and I look at the way even school has changed since I was growing up. And even though the things that are being taught are similar and the way they're being taught has never changed, the entire landscape of education has changed with the phones and with social media and with the way that we have access to the entire world. It is very different, but we don't see those salaries changing to reflect the fact that now you're not just a teacher, you're a counselor in the classroom because mental health isn't as accessible to everybody as it could be, and you're dealing with the cyber aspects of families posting on social media that they don't like this teacher because they were whatever to this person, and you have that backlash. And we don't look at the fact that we have these people who are dedicating their entire life to our children, and they're making less than, I mean, so many people. I can go back to like celebrities making millions of dollars, but that's even people who are doing comparable jobs that are making much higher than them in other industries. And I think that's sad. I do think that's sad.
I was in learning support classes most of my life, usually pushed in there at times, like I had those frustrations with teachers myself, and I think one of the biggest issues generally is just overworked teachers.
Absolutely.
They like, I see this cycle, and it's hard to take myself out of it, of course, but like, as a kid, teacher would get frustrated with me because of my learning disabilities. It would start slowing down the class, and then they're getting frustrated because there's just not enough support for 32 kids in a classroom.
Absolutely.
And like, you look at how other countries are modeling their education. I think Finland has a pretty good one. They have like a teacher or 3 teachers in the classroom at all times, and like max class size of like 22, and just everything across the board. Like, would that model, I see a lot of it just coming down to the pay and teachers we're getting, because like there's a lot of people who are definitely intelligent enough who would happily become a teacher.
Absolutely.
If it was economically
if the support was
viable.
there.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
And some of these small towns, especially in rural towns, like they're struggling to get teachers because some people don't want to move out there, and like
And driving from
the
Erie to
driving
Corey or Erie to Northeast.
I lived in Washington State, so I was
Okay.
thinking a little more remote, but like they're
way out there.
way out
Yeah.
there, and like I know they're trying different stuff to try and get teachers even in there.
And teachers even are almost obligated to purchase their own supplies for the classroom.
They
for
are.
the kids.
And it's hard because we see that there are obviously children that have less money or children that have more money. So when they have the parents purchasing supplies, it's so inequitable and unfair for other students. And it's, again, I'll forever go back to it's never a child's fault, so that's not fair. And then sometimes it's not something that a parent can help either. I know that I can remember being, when my daughter was in public school and not at homeschooled, I can remember being a volunteer for book fair and a little girl not having any money and me just pulling money out. And I can't imagine how often that happens with teachers, and how often that happens with the staff, and how often that's happening where you're already not making a lot of money, but you're spending what you can because you see these kids every day. You see their situations, and you see where they're at, and obviously it's going to break your heart. These are kids. So,
Yeah.
and so about the staffing, that's another thing that we realized when I was dealing with the special education classrooms. My son was in an autism support classroom for a short period of time. The autism support classroom itself was fantastic. His teacher was absolutely amazing. I loved her to death. But it was 3 paras and 1 teacher, and in a classroom with kids like Nicholas, because my Nicholas is a tornado. When I tell you he is nonstop, he is nonstop. He ended up falling and hitting his head, or well, we think he fell and hit his head, but nobody can actually tell me what happened. Got a really big bump. We thought we were going to have to go to the doctors. It ended up going down, but he cried for a solid hour. I was very scared, and that's when we ended up kind of pulling him out. And it's one of those situations where the state sees it as 3 paras and 1 teacher is enough for the classroom size. And it is 99.9% of the time, right? Like 99% of the time, people are probably not trying to do jumps off the tables or whatever Nicholas was trying to do, because I can tell you it was probably something crazy. But that 1% of the time is when the kids get hurt, and they can be seriously hurt. So at the DiVittorio Center, we figured out that if you do a Sunrise along with ABA, you can actually do one-to-one support, and you can use a model that gets those people a higher starting salary than it would if they were just 3-to-1, 72-hour trained. And it's working really well in the concept that every single para is assigned to a specific student. So it's tailored personalized education, because we have a bad background with learning support classrooms in my family as well, where they just didn't serve the people that they were supposed to serve. It wasn't, how do you have 7 kids who have different abilities, right? Like dyslexia or autism or something like that, and they put all these kids together in one classroom, and you expect them all to learn the same, and then you get frustrated when these kids don't learn the same way.
Yeah. I mean, I can say from my personal experience, you know, I struggled with writing. I have a processing speed disorder.
Okay.
Getting like the topics from my head down to my paper has always been a bit of an issue. But I remember being in a learning support class, and I can read just fine. I can write. You know, I struggle with, you know, getting a paper done, you know, not actually writing and knowing my words and knowing how to spell and everything.
Having
you know?
5 pages done in
it's more of
hours.
just like getting it all worded out, and like, you know, it's just part of my learning disability. But like, I was in the same class as a kid who couldn't read.
So then you can't.
So like my senior year of high school, they wouldn't let me transfer to a regular class. I wanted to go to a regular class knowing I would get a lower grade, but I would learn more, because all they were teaching us were how to dissect sentences, because that's the only place you can go when a group of kids in the class can't read, you know? So like, I didn't take that seriously. Like,
how are you supposed to at that point? You're so beyond that
and
cognitively.
I was going to vote tech at the time, so I really blew off those learning support classes. But then once I was in regular classes, when I was in regular history classes, I got A's, A pluses.
Well, and it's never about. So there's a really great statement, and it's perceived competence, right? And so many of our autism schools or autism support classrooms, they're warehousing children, special education classrooms. They're putting people there because they don't know how to teach them in a way that's meaningful to those children or those students. I mean, I say children, but it can be anybody, right? Like it can be a 32-year-old who's in college that doesn't have the same learning style that we're taught is the most important learning style. And that's not how we should be approaching humanity to begin with. Like, obviously, everybody's different. We celebrate those differences until they're an inconvenience to us, right? But perceived competence is this really fantastic idea that was started that when we're teaching students, children, anybody, we automatically assume that they understand or have the ability to understand everything that we're saying and everything that we're doing. And if there is a barrier there that makes it seem like we're not able to do that, then we are then giving them the tools required to get to where we're at, right? So say you have problems like writing down an entire thing, like great, like let's see if there's an AAC device that we can have translate that in, or a voice to text or something of that nature. Like my son, he types on my phone whatever he's thinking. He'll type words that are crazy. Like, he'll tell me, like, Animal Train or Baryonyx, the dinosaur, and he has no problems with that. But as soon as, like, you want him to have a full conversation with you, sometimes there's that barrier. So presumed competence, like, if we're thinking that everybody can perceive what we want to perceive and everybody can learn what we want to learn, then we're teaching them those things. We're not taking away, like, hey, you have to be at the level of every other person.
Yeah. And I had a pretty rough time in school. It was not exactly. I wouldn't go back.
No.
I got my my invite to go to my high school reunion for my Sweet 16 high school reunion.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah, I pressed decline pretty fast on that one.
No, you didn't want to do that one. No.
I was like, nope. I was like, I'm out. Have fun, guys. No, and a lot of, there's a lot of issues that people are facing in school, obviously. Like, does this come back around to some of the affordability issues as well? Like, are kids struggling and that push its way into the classroom and all kinds of stuff like that?
When we think about the fact that I had to redefine my definition of homelessness recently, because my understanding of homelessness was you live on the street. When I started on the school board, we have a homeless liaison who actually was my high school principal growing up. So it was really a very odd dichotomy there. But I learned that a student is defined as homeless if they are not in a stable home. Like, they could be couch surfing on grandma and grandpa's couch, or they could be living at a camper, or they could be staying with family friends, but their house is not their house. And sleeping on a couch every night in a household with two families isn't a restful sleep. Having that kind of fear of being even found out that you don't have your own house, you can't have your friends come over because it's too much to be embarrassed about, or even like having your house falling apart or living in a house that doesn't have heat, something of this nature. It's a totally new concept. And I think that that is the biggest thing that I guess even like the last 10 years has taught me, is that all of my preconceived notions of so many things, of being homeless versus being houseless, being on the autism spectrum and having behavior issues, even our perception of what going hungry means is so different than how I perceived the world growing up, because I knew everything when I was 15, right? I knew everything when I was 20. I knew everything when I was 25. Finally, at 37, I'm like, oh, guys, I don't know anything. Oh, my gosh. Like, let's just keep redefining things. But I think that when we look at cost of living and we look at this deficit that people don't see, we should always think that what we're seeing is not even tip of the iceberg, whole picture, right? We have to keep redefining everything, because just because you know one situation doesn't mean that you know every situation, or that most situations are what you think they are.
Once we start to consider the community inclusion model, where healthcare and education have some intersectionality.
Absolutely.
You mentioned the quality of sleep that a student might have. And that's certainly part of the foundation, having parents that are willing to help with homework and maybe not necessarily be the best at a particular subject, but giving the kind of support that translates into the classroom in some way. And like Eric, you mentioned the VOTEC classes and experiential learning as an alternative to academic learning.
Oh yeah, VOTEC was great. I don't know. I think they have one up here in Erie. I'm not too familiar with all the school stuff.
They do, yeah.
So, but yeah, I went for auto mechanics, and like, that's something I was always able to do. I'm always like a fix with my hands type thing.
Okay.
So, it's been pretty tough, like, after I hurt my knees. Like not being able to do that stuff anymore, and being on disability, and like not really having some of the skills that I would need to do something different as well. can be frustrating.
Eric's the guru of gadgets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've just doomed yourself because now every time I have a question, I'm sending it to you. And that's a lot of questions, I promise.
But yeah, like I remember when I was a kid, my dad saw a lawnmower someone was throwing out that looked like brand new, and he told me to go get it. And I was with my TSS when I was a kid. He's like, "Hey, go grab that lawnmower and tell me what's wrong with it." And I was probably about 12, and so I go up there, I get it, I like flip it over, take off the blade, unmount the engine, and then I find the bearing that's broken real quick. And my TSS was like, he's just like, "You just took apart a lawn?" And like, yeah. He just like couldn't believe it. You found out what was wrong, and I'm just like, yeah, this part's sheared. You can see it's.
Well, and that's exactly it, right? If we could see that was your learning, right? That was your skill, that was your gift. And we could put so much more time and effort into doing that than saying, oh, well, like you aren't writing 7-page essays in 2 hours. Like how much further could we be as a society, and how much further could we be in an education system, and how much further could we be in all of the things if we were able to see and capitalize on what makes us who we are and what makes us smart and good and like, I mean, extraordinary, right? Like, I don't even know what a bearing is, right? If you told me to, like, I go pop my hood, I probably take 3 hours trying to get my trunk open because there's that weird little switch underneath it. And I don't know where the squishy fluid goes,
Yeah, my father was a machinist growing up. And so, like, a lot of my childhood was working, I can remember as a young kid deburring aluminum parts until friggin' 2 a.m. because the mortgage was needed paid, But like, I mean, that's the kind of stuff I remember as a kid too. So it was like tough at home, and then like it's tough when you have parents that are kind of like didn't really see school as kind of like an exhausting thing. They just thought, oh, they just go here and have fun all day or something.
Well, that burnout, right?
And like, I was like getting bullied and had all kinds of other problems. I was getting done with school and I was drained.
Well, not only is good health, part of education, getting a good night's sleep, but also good nutrition.
Absolutely.
And so, we're very mindful of the fact that something like 3 million people, or is it 7 million, have been removed from the...
it's 3.
3 million people moved off of SNAP benefits since July of 2025. The supplemental nutrition and...
I don't know what it stands for.
Mm-hmm.
Supplemental nutrition aid program, right? Aid program, is that what it is?
Aid program?
Yes.
Okay.
I believe so.
So people who need access to food are suddenly getting less access to food. And we also see a similar environmental concern with access to water. And we're all familiar with climate change, especially here in Erie, where we have all 4 seasons, sometimes in one day.
Yes,
We've
absolutely.
had all 4 seasons in the past 4 days.
Yes.
Yes, we have.
I went out and there was snow on frost and snow on my windshield like 3 days ago.
If it could be warm for a couple of days, I'd be okay with it.
Be welcome, very welcome.
Please.
Yeah.
It's
please.
May. It's May, guys. It's time. It's time for
turn
a
the
warm
page.
day.
Yeah.
But
We're seeing a tremendous issue even with the food stamps being taken away.
Mm-hmm.
We're seeing such an incredible strain on food pantries and food banks. And I know that in Corey, we've always had a very, very successful food pantry, food bank. We have really fantastic volunteers for that. And we are seeing the biggest amount of people who are using that than at any other point. And we are at a point where Corey is below the median income for the entire state annual income. We have a higher rate of single parents, And a lot of those people aren't capable of working because of the way that either childcare works or they don't make enough money to live while they're working with the jobs in Corey. And if you travel to Erie, then that gives you an entire 2 hours kind of travel. That's already an issue with childcare, right? So we're seeing people who have existed on food benefits who don't even use it as their entire food allowance, who are suddenly completely cut off from that. And then they're turning to the food pantry that's already having record numbers. And that's been something my perception of everything, right? Like you see the food pantry as something that is used by a couple of people every once in a while who all of a sudden have a massive issue. No, it's an amazing commodity that people need to survive. And now we're seeing this flounder as well. And it could be really incredibly scary.
I know at my local food bank in Mill Creek, I had to stop going because they just didn't have any of the things I was even eating. Because I like to go and get some fresh food there. Because, like, that's where it fit in. Like, some ground beef, some chicken.
Well, and the cost of that now is so high.
And, like, I would go there, but it all, like, and milk. Milk was a big one. But, like, all that stuff, like, dried up, and they weren't getting it anymore. And it was just some expired cans, basically.
Yes, exactly.
And, you know, I remember going around and, like, and just trying to access these benefits can be so expensive for people, especially with the increased cost because of the war and just oil prices in general, just keeping everything so high. Because oil costs, you know, go to food costs, goes to street costs, it goes to property taxes, it really trickles down into every part of your life.
We're looking at record inflation right now.
Right. And we're mindful also not just of how education and healthcare and the minimum wage and SNAP benefits are connected, but we're also looking at, you know, the availability of water and sometimes the availability of water, whether it's a water shortage or water scarcity or even water bankruptcy, you know, the 3 levels that the World Health Organization recognizes. You know, we're blessed to have Lake Erie so close, a large source of fresh water, okay, and also the freshwater fish.
Some would say it's the largest freshwater source.
Yes. Locally, it's definitely the largest. But there are competing influences for access to all of these resources. And of course, one of those competing influences are the AI data centers, which suck up so much water. And it seems like data centers have an operational model that's unsustainable for ecological reasons. The sheer amount of water that is being sucked up to cool and to process, you know, the machines at work. But also, we see, you know, the United States in particular has so many more AI data centers than other nations. And at the same time, we're aware of the wildfires out west in California, the water shortage in Nevada, Colorado, Utah, New Mexico. And those are communities that might have a different definition of access compared to Erie.
Absolutely.
Because we have the lake so far. Or so close.
I just saw in Utah as well, like a local city had said no to a data center and they're installing it anyways. And like the issue that the residents were complaining about was straight up just like, we are not going to have water. Like literally not going to have water to support this.
I always think about, so I don't know the 100% validity of this because I just recently read this, but I did see that wild honeybees are currently on the endangered species list. Well, farmed honeybees are not, and bees are near and dear to my heart. So I think of the fact that honeybees need a very accessible water source. And it doesn't have to be a lake because obviously you're not going to put bees on the beach. That'd be kind of cool though. I'm not going to lie. But we think about the fact that these water sources that are drying up are places like freshwater springs, and we're looking at streams, creeks, things of that nature. And we are in a time where there really isn't policy in place that dictates how these data centers pop up. They're so new. It's one of those new shiny things, right? They're a quick way to make money because they don't take up much space and they're doing so much. And they seem like a really great idea when you're looking for a way for maybe a diversified revenue or diversified income for other things where we're already seeing inflation, so you're trying to make that extra money. But until we're sitting down and we're actually seeing what the long-term effects of this are, and we're creating and handling policies, and we're coming up with kind of like fail-safes, I think that it's an incredibly dangerous situation because it's the same situation as trying out a new medication without actually knowing what the long-term effects are, right? We introduce these medications, and then we find out 10 years later that they actually do a lot worse. They hurt your liver, they hurt your kidney. These data centers seem really fantastic for a lot of different reasons, but who knows where we're going to be at in 10, 15 years. And we have the ability always to look at things, to slow down, take a look at things, form policy, form ideas, scientific method, right? Let's see what this is actually going to do and what we can do to make sure that we're not going to hurt that. And then, I'm not going to say that I think that tomorrow is going to be Skynet and we're going to have the Terminator, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, we do see those issues with AI therapies, and we see people using AI in a way that we want it to work, and that we might not be able to discern the accuracy or how much help versus what can be dangerous about it. So I do think that AI is shiny and new. Everybody likes their own little caricatures, or they want to feel like they can type in what they need and have it given back to them. But it's one of those situations that policy needs to be in place, research needs to be done. We need to protect people before we're just throwing up whatever we can.
Absolutely. We like the Lego videos.
That has been a wild one. But no, data centers, obviously, people are going to be watching this video later on a data center. Yeah. From a data center. There are a bunch of different types of data centers. You have ones that are storing data like this, and then they have the AI ones that are running thousands upon thousands of high voltage graphics cards that, are making it impossible for, it's making it impossible for people who need to build a computer or like to game or something like that. Those parts are very unavailable at the moment. Because I
just spoke to a photographer about SD cards. Even the cost of SD cards increasing exponentially because so many of them are being purchased for similar situations.
The biggest one is RAM. RAM is so expensive in computers, and it depends on the parts too, because sometimes like laptop RAM is not as expensive as the desktop RAM, and it depends on the part. But there's also these data centers going in that are solely for the purpose of mining cryptocurrency, which literally serves zero purpose to the community. But I saw a video, I forget where it was. I think it was a More Perfect Union video. I'll try and link that video down in the comments. But they talked about just the infrasound coming in. I don't know if you've heard about infrasound at all. So it's sound waves that are inaudible, but they still cause you to be on edge almost.
Okay.
So it's kind of like an inaudible sound, but you can your body can still vibrate from it. And it can cause health issues and all kinds of stuff for prolonged exposure to it. And that's becoming an issue just because it's the humming of thousands of little fans
Okay.
from a distance and the vibrations it creates in the ground. Like, there's a bunch of issues. Infrasound has been one of the things that I've been seeing talked about a lot with data centers, and it's causing massive health effects just for the people living near a data center. Just
I can't imagine that. I mean, yeah, I wonder if that's, so there's that Earth hum here theory where if people go out into space, like their body misses like the rotation and the feel of Earth, like,
Human resonance.
right? Like I'm wondering if like that disrupts, for lack of a better word, like that Earth hum that we're all so used to.
it might, like, the thing I saw it described as, like, it can cause anxiety. It's just like, imagine the feeling of there's someone behind you. You can't
the
see
time.
them. You can't see them, but they're definitely behind you, and like you can feel its presence, you know. I don't know too much about it. I think this is probably going to create more research into the topic because, like, probably hasn't been researched too much.
I think that's a big thing, is a lot of research is needed to be done.
But yeah, no, and also another big thing is just these companies see the fine that is put in place when they break these rules as just a cost of doing business. You know, I think it was last July, our governor signed a $20 billion Amazon Web Services deal with the state of Pennsylvania to bring in these data centers. And as someone who's like already struggling to pay their bills, like, is this going to increase demand on the grid and cause more power to go up all over the state? Like, because I know there's none being built here at the moment. Like, I do know that they tend to be more in central PA. But like, I'm definitely worried about like the increased cost coming to this area just from it existing. And then even when the rules are broken, they just don't care. They just keep doing it and they go, oh, we'll see you in court. And they keep doing it for years until that court.
There's a lot of discussion of the light pollution that's generated by AI data centers also. And there have been some recent Freedom of Information Act lawsuits, successful ones, looking into what is actually going to become of this new ballroom attached to the White House. And one of these successful Freedom of Information Act filings found that it is indeed going to be a bunker for an AI surveillance command and control center. And they actually have the blueprints for the structure going several stories underground.
I saw something about that.
Right. And so setting aside the whole Fourth Amendment right to privacy, right to feel secure in your person aspect of AI data centers and flat cameras, setting that aside, but thinking about the light pollution, the subliminal sound, the infrasound pollution, when the old ballroom on the White House was summarily dismantled, the rubble was deposited in a landfill, and they're just now going through the rubble and finding all kinds of heavy metals.
Absolutely.
And phosphates and benzenes. There's probably even asbestos.
I'm sure.
Given
it's that old. I mean, that
right.
makes sense.
Yeah. And rushing forward with how much can we do rather than asking the question, should we do this or not? Like, we don't want to go back to the Terminator movie that hard.
No, we don't.
But as entertaining and wonderful as that movie was, we have to ask the questions that are centered in, where we are right now at this point in history with this election, where so much legislation can be created to responsibly develop AI data centers. China, for example, is putting their AI data centers offshore, underwater, for cooling and some turbines to generate the energy. Some people speculate eventually they'll be in outer space. Who knows? But right here, right now, is where we need to focus on what is the election security that is going to play a role this coming November. What are your thoughts about, since we've had a history of local politicians endorsing throwing out votes for reasons other than of actually evaluating the ballots? What are your thoughts about election security?
So I have a lot of thoughts about election security. I want to start this with, I actually recently had a very, very good conversation about how everybody should be very, very aware when they're doing their mail-in ballots, that if there are multiple people in a home doing mail-in ballots, that you make sure that you're putting it in the proper envelope, because we have seen a tremendous amount of husband and wife switch, and those votes do not count anymore. Signing your envelope, these things are very important. And if we're looking at voter security just from like the very beginning, like step-by-step version, right? Like that is something that I strongly encourage everybody to double check, because I didn't realize this until I saw these facts and figures. The next part of voter security that I want to touch upon is the fact that voting is a duty that all people have. In doing anything that can throw out or block those votes, I think that we are standing in the way of our civic duties. I think that there is a movement right now that will show that more people are going to vote and get out and vote and use that right than ever before. And I think that in a lot of cases, for a lot of people, that might seem like a bad thing, because we're in a time where it's very difficult for people to disagree. And I think that sometime very soon that we will see that people are starting to get back on the understanding that we're all trying to be the same. We're all trying to have the same things. Like, we all want food, we all want housing, we all want to be able to live our lives in a way that's meaningful and that we're happy and secure. But I think that right now, the people who want to divide us, right? I think that the people who want to continue a narrative of making us be afraid of each other, hate each other, and think that we're all so different and we're so against each other, really want to disrupt that voter security and really want to make it as difficult as possible for us to engage in our civic duties.
What do you think about Election Day being a national holiday?
I think that would be fantastic, mostly because, I mean, at the high ed, we already go vote. Like, go vote, we'll kick you out if you don't go vote, right? I think that it would make it much easier. I think that it would give us opportunities to have a lot more people do, like, voter poll driving. It would give people more opportunity to get out at hours that aren't, I mean, everybody goes, 7, noon, 5. If everybody could break that up, then I don't have to stand in line for 2.5 hours. That'd be awesome. I think that it would be a really, really great thing to do. I think that we already have the ability to, make federal holidays for important things, and why wouldn't Election Day, voter elections, be an important day?
It's the essence of community inclusion.
It is.
I've always wondered why we didn't have that. It was just like, but then you start looking into it and you're just like, oh, there's a big movement to actually dismantle the vote. And, recently we had the Supreme Court's decision with the Voting Rights Act. And
that seems like treason.
Yeah, it's
very intentional. Very intentional.
Very intentional.
It's pretty upsetting.
Between the SAVE Act legislation and the recent Supreme Court legislation, there's a trend in the Supreme Court with Janus decision attacking labor unions, Citizens United, changing the playing field for big money in elections. In the 2020 presidential election, I was involved with the union effort to advocate for mail-in ballots.
Okay.
And it made such a tremendous difference because, of course, in November of 2020, we were still dealing with the lockdown and the pandemic and COVID and so forth, and everybody wanted to maintain a hygienic method of voting. Very, very critically important. And at the same time, how we include everybody in the community, whether it's giving them rides to the polling location, getting them access to the drop-off box, having multiple drop-off boxes that are secure. All of those points contribute to the ultimate goal of free and fair elections.
Absolutely.
So, Kat, I'm also interested in your perspective on the background of Corey. We've talked about how Erie County can be considered a bellwether in different ways than just recent elections, but the history of manufacturing in Erie County, the history of agriculture, and 14,000 acres of grapes along Lake Erie. What's the background to Corey as a community?
14,000 acres?
Yes.
That's a lot of grapes.
That's a lot of grapes.
It is it's the second largest grape growing and winemaking region in the country after Napa Valley.
It's one of 3 places in the United States that grow Concord grapes. Washington State, is it Michigan Michigan and Northeast Ripley area. Yeah. So really cool. So I can go on a tangent about Corey because, first of all, I grew up wanting to leave Corey very badly, and now I am probably the most prideful Coreyite that has ever existed.
That's a great story.
It's fun. And also, they made sure that they beat Corey history into our heads between 5th and 10th grade. So Corey actually started as a train town. Mm-hmm. We were a junction. It was actually the Corey Junction, which is why we have the Corey Junction Greenway Trails. And in addition to that, we were a big corset manufacturer. We actually have a post office that was specifically made. It's one of the older post office, and it's beautiful. If you ever get a chance to go to the Corey post office, please do. But it was made specifically to send out the corsets. So we have a First Friday that's called Corsets and Climax, which sounds way more mischievous than it actually is. It's the Climax locomotive and the corsets. So we started as a train community, and as you would expect, when there are trains going through that, industry started up, right? Manufacturing. We had the ironworking. We had, when I was growing up, we had multiple. We had McGinnis Steel, that's now Elwood National Steel, but we have Corey Manufacturing that has Department of Defense. We have Viking Plastics. We have the Industrial Way. We used to have Ajax. But even in a town where it's mostly blue collar, it's mostly people that are in manufacturing, hardworking people, we're seeing a tremendous decrease in our manufacturers. We're seeing trouble getting people to take those welding classes, or we don't have access to them the same way we were. We're seeing people leaving, and we have a tremendous brain drain, right? We have people that you would want to come back to Corey or even fill those manufacturing jobs, they're leaving because manufacturing isn't making what would be comparable to where we're sitting right now, or the hours are longer, or we're seeing that the work is just not as frequent as it was, and it comes in waves. So, I mean, Corey has a very strong background on manufacturing, and we're seeing a change in that. We're seeing kind of a pivot in that. The Corey Hyatt is obviously trying to help with that. We have different industries that we're going into. We're trying to promote that. Impact Corey with Chuck Gray. Chuck Gray, very close personal friend of mine, always doing all the good work to make sure that everybody has workforce. And I see it as a community trying to change, but it's very different to see that manufacturing town where I grew up versus where we're sitting at right now.
I grew up in a small town that had boomed because of coal.
Okay.
And I grew up surrounded by coal miners, people who were members of unions. The history of West Virginia and the Battle of Blair Mountain is everywhere. And archaeologists are still finding guns and bullets hidden in trees and under rocks. That's a memory of what happened in southern West Virginia, especially in 1921. And in that sense, both Corey and Erie are in a process of reinventing themselves.
Yes.
And Erie's history as an industrial producer has changed dramatically because of the railroads also. And embracing new technologies such as manufacturing microchips here. That's almost a national security need because of what's going on with China and Taiwan. But at the same time, our ability, the United States' ability to manufacture antibiotics, medicine, that's also done primarily in Taiwan as far as the supply in the United States. But having antibiotics manufactured in Erie County, we still have the shipping through the St. Lawrence Seaway. We have the railroads that can go south and east of here, obviously west. So with Corey's industrial background and Erie's industrial background, we're talking about wages and healthcare and education, how those things are connected. What are some of the things you hope for in the future?
So I have been working almost 8 years on the fiber project in Corey, Pennsylvania. High-speed internet would be absolutely fantastic.
Right.
I lived the life of we were almost done, and things slowed that down. There was a little bit of political turmoil in Corey not too long ago, but that seems to be going in the right direction. The High Ed is working on that fiber installation and fiber node. High-speed internet is something that I feel like in the year that we are at, like I shouldn't be reminded of my dial-up back in the day. I really truly hope for a movement of the way we're doing things as far as education, obviously the autism support. I think that we could redefine Corey specifically by bringing in workforce and education and medical. We kind of need that. We're a hub where we're sitting. I mean, we're 30 miles from Warren, Jamestown, Erie. We could be this kind of like connector between Pittsburgh, Buffalo, Cleveland.
Sure.
And I think that if we bring in more people and they see that wagon wheel, I think that we could actually really bring it in with that high-speed internet. We could be doing really awesome with remote work because it's rural, it's beautiful. Corey is fantastic. Yeah. We've got the trails. We've got. Yeah. I think that we could be a huge spot for that. In kind of addition to that, I'm good friends with Julie Zajac of 3 Pillars Farms.
3 Pillars.
Yes, 3 Pillars. That's where my bees are. So, and Julie is an absolute powerhouse in the way she thinks about agro-tourism, right? Like farming and tourism, doing community kitchens, how that would look for education, how that would look for involving it with the schools, how regenerative agriculture, right? Like how that affects the future of agriculture. And I'm not doing justice to it because she is one of the smartest people I've ever met in my entire life. So like she could talk about this all day, right? But when I hear her talk and I see where we're at with agriculture there, how we can farm to table, how we're bringing things back to local, right? How we can bring Piedmontese beef to the people of Corey and how that affects grocery prices and how we can start bringing things home, how we could start bringing PA beef into the school districts and creating those contracts into the school districts where we're making sliders for our students that come from a cow down the road, which is weird to me because I'm a vegetarian, but you know what I mean? Like we're getting there anyway. Yeah. But like how we can actually like effectuate our cost of living even just based on our own local agriculture. And then on top of that, with the community kitchen and with the way that we're doing agritourism, we can not only bring people from outside to be like, here, like try Northeast grapes because these are the only grapes. Like this wine is the only wine from Northeast. Try like this Piedmontese beef. Try like these locally like grown like heirloom tomatoes. Try like Corey, Pennsylvania honey. We could be putting this into our community, right? We could have more open air farmers markets. You can go to 3 Pillars Farm and have that farm stand. And we're seeing so many more of those farm stands, right? And it's kind of like bringing things home, but in a futuristic way. So I think that could be really tremendous for our area as well.
That would be tremendous. You mentioned, beekeeping and the 3 Pillars Farms. And our most recent episode here on the Common Liberty podcast, we load the clip, and we had a episode just about beekeeping.
I love it.
Yeah. So can you tell us just a little bit, with the time we have left, about your own beekeeping?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm terrible at it. My first year of owning bees, I got stung over 80 times because I only wore the coat. My daughter was my concern because she was with me. She only got stung once. I don't know how. I didn't go to the hospital because I didn't realize, hey, you can go into anaphylaxis if you get stung a lot. And I spent the entire night puking on the bathroom floor. It was awful.
Oh, goodness.
I love my bees. Those bees are the hardest. Like the bees that attacked me were the hardiest bees I've ever seen in my entire life. The only consistent hive that has survived year over year. I'm terrible at it, but I love it passionately. Passionately.
Beekeeping is a labor of love.
It is.
No doubt.
It is.
I love honey.
Yeah. Honey is the best part of it. No doubt. Well, we want to thank everybody for tuning in to the Common Liberty podcast today. On behalf of Eric and myself, we want to encourage everybody to please like and subscribe and share the clip with your friends. We also want to especially thank our special guest, Kat DiVittorio, today. And thank you so much for your insight to the Corey High Egg Council, the Center for Autism, and especially your candidacy for Pennsylvania Legislative District number 4.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kat.
Thanks.